a one-legged pirate with a parrot, a map with an X, 15 men on a dead man's chest. Everything we know about pirates is a vivid, captivating myth, and almost all of it is fiction. Pure invention, created by one man a century and a half later. He invented the map, the treasure, yo-ho-ho, and a bottle of rum, the entire story that conquered our imagination. But there's something that was real, a real treasure, a real mystery, something worth more than all the gold in the world. Imagine you become a pirate, a rebel. You challenge the world. You sail under the black flag and take what the world owes you. But here's the question. Do you really challenge the system? Or maybe when the Royal Navy beats you, cripples you, throws you out to die, when society leaves you no choice, maybe that is how the world creates you as a pirate, as a monster, as an outcast, as a justified subject to execution, leaving you no other options than to rebel. So this rebellion, this freedom, is an act of will, or it is a product of the circumstances? Now the answer to that question is the real gold of the pirates. An answer that built the freest society of its time, and an answer for which kings hanged men without trial. And today we are raising that answer from the bottom of the ocean, but first we need to bury the myth. Because historical pirates almost never buried gold, never. Think about it. These men lived on the edge of the world, beyond law, beyond civilization. Tomorrow might bring a storm, a naval patrol, a mutiny, a cannonball with your name on it. First, psychology. Their motto was simple: live merrily, die soon. Why bury gold you can drink tonight? Why save for a future that probably won't come? For tomorrow, you might be feeding the fish. Second, their loot wasn't even doubloons. It was cargo, sugar, barrels of it, cloth, bolts of silk and cotton, rum, tobacco, perishable goods you couldn't bury in the ground. You had to sell it fast, split the profit, spend it faster. No retirement fund, no pension plan. Third, burying treasure was a crime against the pirates themselves. On a pirate ship, everything divided equally, by contract. Every man signed the articles. Hide even one coin you just stole from your brothers, from the men who bled beside you. Break that rule once, and you'll regret it very much. Exactly one documented case exists. One pirate buried treasure. One in all of history. And it proves exactly why they never did this. Captain William Kidd. Here's the thing. He wasn't even a pirate. Kidd was a privateer, legal and respectable, carrying a commission from the King of England himself to hunt pirates in the Indian Ocean. He was married, had children in New York, one of the good guys. But powerful men in London, nobles and merchants who'd invested heavily in his voyage, expected returns. When Kidd returned with less treasure than they demanded, they needed someone to blame. So they burned his papers, destroyed his reputation, declared him a pirate, a convenient criminal to hide their own financial crimes. Kidd saw the trap closing. He did something desperate. He sailed to the American colonies and buried part of his treasure on Gardiner's Island off New York. Not for retirement, not for legacy, as leverage, an insurance policy. He thought, if I tell them where the gold is, maybe they'll bargain. Maybe they'll pardon me. The plan failed spectacularly. The authorities arrested him, dug up his treasure, but they didn't use it to free him. They dragged it into court as evidence. See? Pirate treasure. He must be a pirate. Kidd hanged in 1701. The rope broke on the first drop. They hanged him again. Then they coated his body in tar and hung it in chains by the Thames River for years, a warning to every sailor who passed. That single case, one desperate man's failed gambit, got blown into legend by newspapers and pamphlets. The story spread, mutated, grew. A century later, English novelist Robert Louis Stevenson wove it into the most famous pirate story ever told, the iconic Treasure Island, a story that buried truth under fiction. So if gold was myth, if they weren't burying treasure chests, then why? Why choose the deadliest profession on earth? Why walk toward the gallows? The average pirate captain lasted 9 months. 9, before a bullet found him or a noose. They must have hunted something more valuable than gold, something worth dying so quickly, so violently for. They found it, not a chest, a document, the Articles of Agreement, the Pirate Code. To understand why this code was treasure, you need to see what they fled. The Royal Navy wasn't noble uniforms and proud tradition. It was a floating hell. Picture this. You're in a London tavern. Maybe you're a merchant sailor between voyages. Maybe you're just a dock worker having a drink. Suddenly, men burst through the door. Press gang, Royal Navy recruiters with clubs and authority. They beat you unconscious, drag you aboard a warship. You wake up at sea, trapped. Welcome to His Majesty's service. The slightest mistake earned a flogging. Cat o' nine tails across your bare back. 30 lashes. 40. Officers counted while your flesh opened to bone. Men died from infection weeks later. You weren't human. You were a resource. Expendable. Got injured, fell from rigging and shattered your leg. They didn't heal you. Ships didn't carry extra mouths. They wrote you off. Dumped you at the nearest port like broken cargo. Left you to starve under a dock. No pension, no compensation, no dignity. That was the world they escaped. That's why men ran toward the black flag. Not for gold, for something else entirely. What did they find there? A seeker of meaning asks. What is freedom? We think it's a world without rules, no constraints, pure will. Pirates proved something different. Freedom is a world where you write the rules yourself, together. A pirate ship in the 1600s was a floating republic, an experiment in democracy that wouldn't appear on land for another century. The captain, elected. Every man had a voice, quartermaster too. Even the surgeon. All positions voted. The captain held absolute power, but only in battle. When cannonballs flew and seconds mattered, someone had to command. But the rest of the time, he was first among equals. Same food, same quarters, slept in the same hammocks, ate the same weevil-infested biscuits. Crew didn't like his decisions? Vote him out tomorrow. It happened regularly. They divided loot into shares. Not by rank, by agreement written in the articles. Captain got maybe 2 shares. Navigator, 1.5. Carpenter, 1.25. He kept the ship floating. Everyone else, 1 full share. Wounded in battle? Extra share. Lost a limb? More shares. No kings, no lords, no divine right. Just a deal, written down, signed by every man who came aboard, honored or enforced. Council decided everything else. Where to sail, what ships to attack, how to split unusual prizes. Democracy forged in gunpowder and Caribbean wind. Brutal, simple, real. This was 1690. Democracy wouldn't reach most of Europe for another 100 years. But here, on ships flying black flags, men were voting. Let me make this concrete. Imagine that sailor, the one the Royal Navy dumped on the dock to die. He survives, barely, drags himself to a port tavern, hears whispers about a crew forming up, pirates. He signs the articles, joins. First battle, 3 weeks later. They're attacking a Spanish merchant ship off Hispaniola. Cannonball screams across the deck, takes his arm at the elbow. He's bleeding out, screaming. What happens now? What happened on the Navy ship? They throw him overboard, right? Dead weight. No. The surgeon ties off the artery, cauterizes the stump, saves his life. That night, Captain opens the code, reads it aloud to the assembled crew. According to Article 7, their law, voted and agreed, this man receives 100 gold coins from the common chest. Compensation for permanent injury, not charity, not the captain's generosity. A right, written in the contract every man signed. In a world where human life meant nothing, where men were used and discarded, pirates invented social insurance. They created it in 1690. Britain wouldn't have workers' compensation for another 200 years. The revolution of dignity. Their code created something else, something that existed nowhere else in the world. Equality, real equality. Look at a crew roster from a ship like Bartholomew Roberts' Royal Fortune. You'd find Englishmen sailing beside Frenchmen, Dutch beside Portuguese, men who'd been killing each other in Europe's wars, now sharing the same deck, the same shares. You'd find escaped slaves, dozens of them, men who'd been property a month ago, now free, full crew members, equal shareholders in the take. On deck, your skin color didn't matter, your nationality didn't matter, your religion irrelevant. Could you handle a sail in a storm? Could you aim a cannon? Could you climb rigging when bullets flew? That's what mattered. Historical records show up to a third of many crews were former slaves, black freedmen, indigenous people, men with nothing to lose and everything to prove. Free men now, equal shareholders. And women fought too. Anne Bonny, Mary Read, dressed as men initially, then revealed themselves and kept fighting. The crew didn't care. They fought alongside the men, earned their shares, commanded respect, democracy, social safety nets, racial equality, gender equality. In the 17th century, on criminal ships, from people we dismiss as illiterate savages, sounds like utopia, an impossible dream. But this dream had sharp teeth. Here's the central paradox. The knife's edge they walked. This incredible utopia, equality, democracy, dignity, only worked because of brutal, unforgiving discipline. The articles weren't suggestions. They were law. Absolute law. Steal from a crewmate, death. No trial, no appeals. The crew voted. Then they hanged you from the yardarm, or shot you and dumped your body overboard. Show cowardice in battle? Run when you should fight? Death. Cheat during division of loot? Hide even one coin? Death. Or worse, marooning. You know what marooning meant? They rowed you to a deserted island, a sand spit, a rock, no food, no water. They gave you a pistol and one bullet, for when thirst drove you mad. Then they sailed away. Pirates, these symbols of anarchy and chaos, built the most strictly regulated society of their age. More rules than the Navy, harsher punishments than most kingdoms. They understood something we've forgotten, something profound. Real collective freedom, true equality, is impossible without voluntarily accepted, ruthlessly enforced limits. You can't have brotherhood without sacrifice. Can't have democracy without discipline. Can't have rights without responsibilities. They fled the tyranny of kings, the arbitrary cruelty of systems they didn't choose. But to survive, to build something better, they had to create their own system, their own rules, their own punishments. The question they leave us, was their system better? They thought so, enough to die for it. Bodies left hanging as warnings. They knew the cost, chose it anyway. So what are we really seeking when we romanticize pirates? The Treasure Island myth sells us individual freedom, the fantasy of finding your fortune and escaping. No rules, no responsibilities. Just you and your gold on a beach somewhere, free from everyone and everything. It's seductive. We all want it sometimes. To escape, to be free from. But real pirate history teaches something different, something harder. It teaches collective freedom. Freedom to build something together. Their real treasure wasn't a chest of gold buried on some tropical island. It was their articles of agreement, a few pages of rules they wrote themselves. The idea that freedom from tyranny, freedom from systems you didn't choose, is impossible without a fierce contract for protecting each other, that rights require responsibilities, that equality demands sacrifice, that you can't be free alone. The pirates of the Golden Age understood this. They lived it, died for it. And that puts a question to us, to you, to anyone who calls themselves a seeker of meaning. What are we really searching for? Absolute freedom? The right to do whatever we want, whenever we want, accountable to no one? Or are we searching for something deeper? The right to sit with others, equals, and build justice together. To write our own rules, knowing we'll enforce them on ourselves. The pirates made their choice, sailed toward it. Most died young, but they died free, free in a way that mattered to them. And you? How do you define freedom? Thanks for watching, and see you next time.